at this particular moment.
US President Donald Trump says he's very disappointed that India has been buying oil from Russia, but assures that India and the US share a special relationship despite occasional disagreements. President Donald Trump signs an executive order to rename the Department of Defense the Department of War, reverting to a title it held until after World War II.
We're in very deep negotiation with Hamas. We said, let them all out, right now, let them all out, and much better things will happen for them.
President Trump says the United States is in very deep negotiations with Hamas, urges them to release all hostages held in Gaza. Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro calls for dialogue with the US hours after Trump threatened to shoot down Venezuelan military jets if they pose danger to the US forces. Hyundai Motor says it will investigate the employment practices by suppliers and their subcontractors after hundreds of workers at a company's car battery facility under construction in the state of Georgia were detained in a major raid by US authorities. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer undertakes first major reshuffle of his cabinet since coming to power after Deputy Premier Angela Rayner resigned. David Lammy made new Deputy Prime Minister, while Shabana Mahmood to lead the Home Ministry. Mauritius top Minister Jyoti Jithan speaks to WION, says her country is working with India to deal with illicit channels from laundering money into New Delhi. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party has said it will not support any constitutional reforms before the national election in February 2026, arguing that such changes must be made by the next parliament. Typhoon Pepa leaves a trail of destruction in Japan's Shizuoka. At least 23 people injured, 220 buildings destroyed due to heavy rainfall and strong winds. Now, US President Donald Trump has signed an executive order on Friday to rename the Department of Defense the Department of War. The title War Department was used for more than 150 years. It was in effect from 1789, just after independence from Britain, to 1947, shortly after World War II. Flanked by Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth at a signing ceremony at the White House, US President said the current name that had been in place for more than 70 years was too woke.
We won the First World War, we won the Second World War, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke and we changed the name to Department of Defense. So we're going Department of War.
Now, it was the latest rebranding of the US military, which forms part of a wider bid by Trump to project power and potency at home and abroad in his second term. That has so far included his decision to preside over an extraordinary military parade and to restore the original names of military bases that were changed after racial justice protests in 2020. Trump claimed that the new renaming sends a message of victory, adding that it's a much more appropriate name in light of where the world is right now.
I think it's a much more appropriate name, especially in light of where the world is right now. We have the strongest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. We have the greatest manufacturers of equipment by far. There's nobody to even compete. And you see that with this and so many other things. The Patriots are the best. Every element of the military, we make the best by far.
Now, the order would authorize Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to use secondary titles such as Secretary of War in official correspondence and public communications. The department name changes are rare and require congressional approval, but Trump's fellow Republicans hold a slim majority in both Senate and the House of Representatives. Trump also signed an executive order paving the way for Washington to designate countries around the world state sponsor of wrongful detention. This would then allow them to impose punitive measures, including sanctions on those it deems are wrongfully holding Americans. Senior administration officials said the United States would target countries currently holding wrongfully detained Americans, as well as those that engage in hostage diplomacy, including China, Iran, and Afghanistan. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report. Listen to this.
President Trump signed an executive order directing the Pentagon to once again use the title Department of War alongside Department of Defense. He argued that defense sounds too passive, saying the U.S. military should project strength and focus on, quote, winning. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth backed the change, framing it as restoring a warrior ethos, while critics warn of high costs and distractions. Historically, the Department of War, created in 1789, was renamed after World War II. In 1947, the National Security Act recognized the War Department into the Department of Defense to unify the Army, Navy, and the new Air Force. The shift reflected the sentiments of a war-weary nation who preferred to retreat from global entanglements. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, hours after claiming that the United States has lost India and Russia to China, U.S. President Donald Trump has now said that he didn't think that was the case. Trump said he was very disappointed that India continues to purchase large volumes of oil from Russia, but did assure that India and the U.S. share a special relationship despite occasional disagreements. In a social media post, Trump had claimed that India and Russia seem to have been lost to China after their leaders met with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week. But later he told reporters he didn't think that the U.S. had lost India to China. Trump said on Friday that he's very disappointed over the purchase of oil from Russia, and he also said that he gets along very well with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Who do you blame for losing India to China? In your post earlier today in the morning, you did put that out.
I don't think we have. I've been very disappointed that India would be buying so much oil, as you know, from Russia. And I let them know that. We put a very big tariff on India, 50% tariff, very high tariff. I get along very well with Modi, as you know. He's great. He was here a couple of months ago.
Speaking from the Oval Office, Trump praised the Indian Prime Minister but voiced disapproval of New Delhi's current energy ties with Moscow. Trump added that the United States and India share a special relationship despite occasional disagreements.
I always will. I'll always be friends with Modi. He's great. Prime Minister, he's great. I'll always be friends, but I just don't like what he's doing at this particular moment. But India and the United States have a special relationship. There's nothing to worry about. We just have moments on occasion.
Trump's social media post came days after China hosted more than 20 leaders for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit, including Russian President Vladimir Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Putin and Modi were seen holding hands at the summit as they walked towards Xi Jinping before all three men stood side by side. A new brutal game unfolds on Ukraine's front lines, where drone pilots hunt Russians not just for survival but for points. Kyiv's military now rewards confirmed kills with digital bonuses, turning the killing fields into a blood-soaked leaderboard. All this as Russia slams Ukrainian cities with drone and missile blitzes, and Ukraine counters with bold strikes deep into Russian territory. Take a look.
A pulse-pounding revolution in warfare. Ukrainian drone pilots are now rewarded with points for every enemy hit. 2 points for a dead Russian infantryman, 5 points for destroying a tank. Welcome to Ukraine's gamified battlefield, where kills convert to credits and death becomes currency.
Of course, everyone is involved because it's a great incentive for the unit. Everyone is motivated, and now we have also made it so that you get the most points for enemy infantry. Accordingly, everyone is motivated to destroy manpower first and foremost.
Ukraine is under heavy Russian assault. Its cities are crumbling. Russian missiles and drones are raining day and night. Russia has also increased the heat on the ground. Kyiv says over 100,000 Russian soldiers have launched a new offensive to capture Pokrovsk. The front lines are also receding elsewhere too. Ukraine, on the other hand, is running short of weapons and soldiers. In such desperate times, Ukraine's Army of Drones bonus platform allows soldiers to convert battlefield successes into points that can be redeemed for equipment. But there's a chilling catch. No video footage, no points. Drone operators must film their kills to cash in.
The idea behind this program is that in the first stage, we started awarding a certain number of bonuses or points for each enemy hit, tank destroyed or damaged, Russian enemy infantry killed or wounded, and aircraft or helicopter destroyed. It's something like tokens or coins.
But this gamification of war is raising questions. The Ukrainian soldiers also have an unusually intimate view of the horrors playing out on the battlefield.
Well, it really is like a game. But one thing bothers me about this game. You can't save your progress. You can't press F4 and say, okay, I'll start the mission again from this tree. This isn't a game, it's war. If you lose, you can't start the game over.
Russia pounds Ukraine with unrelenting fury. In the last week alone, the Kremlin launched over 2,000 drones and more than 100 missiles, torching power grids, homes and rail lines. Dozens of Ukrainians have died in Kyiv, Zaporizhzhia and beyond. But Ukraine's drones strike back, crippling a Russian refinery near Moscow and blasting ships and radars hundreds of kilometers from the border. As the bodies pile up and the points roll in, Ukraine's war becomes a high-tech duel of nerves, code and conscience. In this savage leaderboard, only the fastest, smartest and deadliest win. And losing is not an option. Bureau Report, WION The World.
All right, breaking news coming in. Shocking visuals from India's Andhra Pradesh, where two prisoners staged a dramatic escape from a sub-jail. A new video shows how these prisoners escaped after attacking the jail warden with a hammer. After hitting the warden, they stole his keys, fled through the gate. Police have launched a large-scale manhunt to find the escaped inmates who were accused of pension fraud and theft. You can see these visuals that are coming in. They're attacking, of course, the warden with a hammer. This jailbreak, dramatic visuals of this jailbreak that have come in. These are visuals from India's Andhra Pradesh, where two prisoners staged this dramatic escape. Prisoners escaped after attacking the jail warden, as we just saw moments ago, with a hammer. After hitting the warden, they stole his keys, they fled through the main gate. They've launched a large-scale manhunt now. The police have launched a large-scale manhunt to find the escaped inmates who were accused of pension fraud and theft. Dramatic visuals coming in on your screens right now. As you can see, two inmates attacking the jail warden with a hammer after stealing, followed by which they stole his keys and fled through the main gate. There is, of course, now a massive manhunt which is underway. Now, US President Donald Trump has good reason to cheer that Labor Day shortened last week by a day. That's because the remaining 4 brought increasingly worse data about the economy on his watch. From manufacturing to hiring, it's been a series of grim readings. And Friday's jobs report may be the biggest hit of all. That perhaps will force the Federal Reserve to cut rates this month.
If you look beneath the headline numbers, the sector participation is among the areas that point to weakness in the job market. And for several months now, we've really been seeing sort of the recession-resistant sectors, healthcare and social assistance, do a lot of the heavy lifting of hiring. And that broad situation is not one where there is any heavy lifting going on. We did see some improvement here in retail and leisure and hospitality. But that area, those two areas which previously had been quite dynamic in the reopening of the U.S. economy, have been rather lackluster in recent months.
Now, a few years ago, the U.S. unemployment rate hovered at half-century lows. Now, the dreaded percentage is at its highest point since 2021, and the depths of the pandemic. Non-farm payrolls rose to just 22,000 versus the 75,000 that was expected. Now at 4.3%, unemployment is fanning concerns that jobs market is nearing more significant deterioration. This from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, an arm of the US Department, where last month Trump fired the commissioner after a similarly sobering report. The latest data is broadly due to the uncertainty and rising costs tied to Trump's trade war and his immigration policies.
One of the most dramatic changes that has occurred in the last few years is that before the Trump administration, among the things that were really helping the job market to expand was vibrant immigration, and the diminution of legal and illegal immigration, and obviously the focus ultimately being on legal immigration, means that we have less labor supply. That's a negative broadly because it impacts the availability of workers that employers can draw from. It's also a negative in the sense that we have less economic activity in the sense of consumer activity that is responsible for about 3/4 of U.S. Economic growth.
The economic reality from Trump's policies are weak jobs, rising unemployment, slowing wages and the fall in hours worked. Usually this kind of bad news for American workers is a silver lining because it makes a rare cut by the Fed more likely. The soft jobs report is intensifying calls for meaningful Federal Reserve interest rate cuts. Consumers are already worried about squeezed spending from tariffs and are now increasingly concerned about job security. Fed doves will intensify their calls for action.
the Federal Reserve is increasingly concerned that the part of its mandate associated with the job market is at risk. And so that means that as they focus on two things as prescribed by law, maximum employment and stable prices, the stable prices part of the story is not where they want it to be. But the most troubling aspect is the fact that payroll growth is grinding to a halt.
Now, home favourite Amanda Anisimova will face world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka for the US Open title. For the American, it's a golden opportunity to win her first Grand Slam and do so on home soil. For the Belarusian, it's a chance to finally break through after falling short in 2 major finals earlier this year. The pair last met on the Grand Slam stage at Wimbledon, where Anisimova defeated world number 1 in the semi-final. The 24-year-old also holds a 6-3 lead in the head-to-head record. Anisimova is the third American woman to face Sabalenka in a Grand Slam final this season. Sabalenka previously lost to Madison Keys at the Australian Open and to Coco Gauff at the French Open.
I feel like in that match at Wembley, I was doubting a lot of my decisions, and that was the main thing that was bringing a lot of unforced errors, and I gave her a lot of opportunities, and of course she played incredible tennis, but I feel like I had my opportunities, I didn't use them, and I feel like the key for me going to be just go out there, of course, like obviously fight, but also trust my decisions and go after my shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's the number 1 player in the world, and she's playing amazing tennis, and it's going to be a really tough match and a battle. Yeah, I'm excited. Every single time we've played, it's been great.
Film enthusiasts and horror fans across the globe are marking a significant milestone this week as Alfred Hitchcock's seminal masterpiece Psycho celebrates its 65th anniversary. Released on the 6th of September 1960, the film, which was initially met with mixed reviews, has since been hailed as a revolutionary work that irrevocably changed the landscape of cinema. Shot in black and white on a modest budget of $800,000, Psycho was a daring departure for Hitchcock, who had become a household name with his polished, star-studded Technicolor thrillers. The film's low-key production using the crew from his TV series, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, was a strategic choice to not only cut costs but also to create a stark, unsettling atmosphere. The decision paid off handsomely, with film raking in over $27 million worldwide and earning 4 Academy Award nominations. At the heart of the film's enduring legacy is its sheer audacity. From the shocking narrative twist that kills off the protagonist just a third of the way in, to the infamous shower scene that remains a masterclass in cinematic suspense, Psycho delighted in subverting audience expectations. Hitchcock's insistence on a strict no latecomers policy for his theatrical release became a legendary marketing tactic, ensuring audiences were fully immersed in the film's terrifying secrets from the very first frame. More than just a thriller, Psycho delved into the deep, dark recesses of human psyche, exploring themes of voyeurism, guilt, and the unsettling duality of human nature. The character of Norman Bates, with his chillingly nuanced performance by Anthony Perkins, became a horror icon, setting the blueprint for countless slasher villains to follow. 65 years on, the Bates Motel and the looming house on the hill remain as potent and terrifying as ever, proving that true horror lies not in gore but in the psychological dread that lingers long after the credits roll. And with that, we call a wrap on this edition of World DNA. But before we go, a new study has revealed that an ultrasound helmet can treat neurological conditions like Parkinson's without surgery or other invasive procedures. We'll be getting you this on the other side. Do stay tuned for that. ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the development